Imagine this. You're an elite researcher aboard the Galactic Alliance's most advanced spaceship, cruising through the stars. Every system has a safeguard, every emergency a foolproof protocol. At least, that's what you thought. But today you're staring at the reactor as it crackles with energy. Something has gone terribly wrong. The standard procedures initiate, flashing alarms, airtight lockdowns, and rows of anxious alien technicians scrambling through checklists. You're seconds away from initiating the highest-level containment procedure, a code-red shutdown. Then, humans arrive. They stroll in, as calm as a late afternoon, on one of their many death zones, casually tossing looks around the chaotic room. And to your utter disbelief, they ignore the panic protocol, sidestepping the carefully crafted safety measures you've drilled into your team for years. They pull out a strange silvery adhesive they call duct tape, glance around, and get to work. You ask yourself, how did it come to this? How can a species so utterly relaxed in the face of catastrophe survive? More importantly, why does it actually seem to be working? Today, you'll witness the unimaginable. Humanity's uncanny ability to solve life-threatening issues with what you can only describe as sheer insanity. Or is it genius? The Galactic Alliance vessel Infinity's Edge sailed through the vastness of space, a marvel of engineering and strict adherence to protocol. Its crew, a carefully selected group of species from across the galaxy, prided themselves on flawless execution and unwavering discipline in the face of crisis. Chief Researcher Lanok moved through the halls with a meticulous stride, his many eyes scanning over data screens as the crew buzzed around him. The ship was a haven of order. Every control dial, every safety protocol followed to the letter. For Lanok, unpredictability was a flaw that had long been engineered out of Galactic Alliance protocol. Until, of course, humans came into the picture. Rumors about Earth and its Deathworlders circulated regularly. Stories, myths even, about humans thriving in extreme environments had become the stuff of legend. Tales of survival on a planet filled with predatory animals, volatile weather systems, and geological upheavals were enough to send shivers through even the most seasoned crews. Humans, in the eyes of Lanok's team, were unorthodox. "Did you hear?" whispered Gavath, a fellow researcher, his voice tinged with barely disguised excitement. "They say humans have something they call coffee, and they drink it even when their nervous systems are fraying. It's like some form of ritual. They actually consume toxins for enjoyment?" another crew member asked, incredulous. The disbelief was palpable, spreading like wildfire as more of the crew leaned in to listen. Just as Gavath was about to share another astonishing human fact, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lights flashed red as the warning klaxons echoed through the corridors. Lanok, unfazed, instantly switched to crisis mode, ordering his team to the reactor room where the systems had detected an energy surge. "This isn't a drill," he announced, his voice calm but firm. "Initiate emergency protocol Beta 47. We have trained for this, and every measure is in place. We will respond calmly and precisely." The crew hurriedly activated containment barriers and donned protective gear, checking off boxes on their emergency lists. Every step, every movement was a coordinated effort, except for one looming concern: the humans. Even before they arrived, the crew murmured anxiously. Some swore that humans defied basic survival instincts, that they'd witnessed them fix critical systems with a strange material called duct tape and face danger with a grin instead of dread. In hushed voices, they speculated how these Earth beings would handle the crisis. They had seen footage, grainy, terrifying clips of humans maneuvering through radioactive zones, seemingly unfazed, holding tools in their hands and wearing that confident expression alien races found impossible to decode. "Prepare for their arrival," Lanok warned, his many eyes narrowing as he studied his team's reactions. "We may have to guide them on proper procedures, ensure they're fitted with appropriate gear, and remember, do not let them stray from protocol." Little did Lanok know, no amount of preparation would keep the humans on script. And as the distant thud of footsteps signaled their arrival, the aliens braced themselves for the unknown. The Galactic Alliance ship Infinity's Edge glided silently through the void, its sleek metallic hull reflecting the light of distant stars. To its crew, a well-organized assembly of galactic species, the ship represented the epitome of order, a place where everything operated according to precise protocols. It was a ship that symbolized what the Galactic Alliance valued most: control, calculation, and a commitment to structure that ensured survival and success in an unpredictable universe. Chief Researcher Lennox was no stranger to the protocols that governed Infinity's Edge. Standing tall with a reflective, chitinous exoskeleton and multiple eyes that caught every movement around him, he embodied the discipline and dedication expected of an Alliance researcher. As he moved along the pristine corridors of the ship, his gaze flickered from screen to screen, monitoring data feeds and diagnostics. Lennox relished the predictability of his work, the knowledge that every variable had been accounted for, and each outcome was calculated to avoid surprises. Surprises, after all, were dangerous. Lennox's commitment to order was shared by the crew, who moved with quiet precision, each step measured and every action a part of a larger plan. They had been meticulously trained to follow the Alliance's protocol system, a vast and exhaustive network of rules and guidelines that anticipated every conceivable situation, from minor technical malfunctions to full-scale emergencies. They lived by these protocols, trusting in the systems that the Galactic Alliance had perfected over centuries. In Lennox's mind, unpredictability was a flaw, one that had been systematically engineered out of Galactic Alliance procedures. However, an unsettling rumor had begun to circulate among the crew, one that had left many of them feeling uneasy: humans. The very mention of humans stirred a strange mixture of curiosity and apprehension among the crew. As an up-and-coming species within the Alliance, humans were still regarded with both fascination and a degree of wariness. Stories had spread from ship to ship, tales of humans thriving in harsh, nearly uninhabitable conditions. Whispers of their so-called death world abounded, with snippets about a planet filled with lethal predators, volatile weather patterns, and geological phenomena that would send most galactic species scrambling for shelter. Did you know humans have rituals where they expose themselves to high-stress situations voluntarily? Muttered Gavath, one of Lennox's fellow researchers, his voice tinged with both awe and skepticism. They call it adrenaline rush. A nearby technician, her scales reflecting shades of worry, shook her head. I've heard even stranger things. They consume toxins on purpose, something called coffee. It's true, Gavath replied, his eyes widening. Apparently they drink it even when their systems are fatigued. Imagine intentionally accelerating one's metabolism. It's as if they have no regard for natural balance. Other crew members gathered around, intrigued by this strange custom. To them, the idea of purposefully disturbing one's equilibrium was baffling. Their own cultures prized stability and harmony, values that ensured survival. Yet humans seemed to embrace practices that were not only unnecessary, but also outright reckless. Before Gavath could share more about human peculiarities, a blaring alarm cut through the calm. The lights throughout the corridor dimmed momentarily, flashing red as an automated voice echoed across the ship. Warning, energy surge detected in Reactor 3, emergency containment protocols engaged. All personnel, report to assigned stations. Lennox's expression remained steady, his mind already processing the steps that needed to be taken. This was a contingency they had drilled for countless times. Every member of the crew knew their role, and every precaution was in place. Lennox's voice carried calmly but firmly over the comms. Crew, this is not a drill. Initiate emergency protocol Beta 47. Move with precision and ensure containment barriers are active. Remember your training. The crew sprang into action, each member donning protective gear and grabbing emergency equipment. They moved as a unit, their actions synchronized and efficient. Containment fields shimmered to life around Reactor 3, and diagnostic screens displayed data at a rapid pace, each number and graph analyzed with laser focus. However, despite the confidence in their systems and protocols, a current of unease rippled through the crew. It wasn't the reactor surge itself that troubled them. They had rehearsed these scenarios too many times for that. What made them uneasy was the knowledge that, in a matter of minutes, humans would be joining them. From the whispers that circulated among the crew, humans had developed a reputation for defying protocol, improvising in ways that seemed reckless to other species. Tales of their disregard for safety measures had spread, and some even claimed that humans could fix critical systems using a strange material called duct tape. But what truly made the crew uneasy was the fact that humans seemed so relaxed about danger. As Lanok made his way to the containment chamber, he overheard snippets of conversation from his fellow researchers, each of them speculating on how the humans would handle the emergency. "They don't even wear proper protective gear in hazardous zones," one technician muttered, her voice laced with disbelief. Another crew member, his antenna twitching nervously, added, "I saw footage of a human calmly walking through a radioactive zone as if it were a mild inconvenience. No precautions, no fear, just indifference." The disbelief and concern were palpable. The aliens exchanged worried glances, wondering what kind of beings could disregard danger with such apparent ease. Their entire approach to survival was based on caution and protocol, and the humans' seemingly casual attitude toward life-threatening situations was both unsettling and, in a strange way, awe-inspiring. As they neared the containment chamber, Lanok issued a final order to his team. "Prepare for the humans' arrival. Ensure they are equipped with all necessary protective gear. Remember, we are the example of protocol-driven procedure. They may lack our training, so be vigilant and prevent any deviations from standard emergency measures." The crew braced themselves, eyes fixed on the door that would soon reveal the human team. Every muscle was tensed, every mind alert. They were ready to enforce protocol, to uphold the order and discipline that defined their ship. But as the door hissed open and the sound of heavy footsteps filled the chamber, it became clear that no amount of training could prepare them for what was about to unfold. The humans entered, their faces calm, even amused, as if they were walking into a minor inconvenience rather than a reactor crisis. "Hey everyone," one of the humans greeted, giving a friendly nod as he set down a toolkit filled with bizarre instruments. "What's the situation?" Lanok blinked, momentarily stunned by the human's relaxed demeanor. "Reactor 3 is experiencing an energy surge. We have initiated containment protocols and are following emergency protocol Beta 47. The human nodded, as if he were being told about an average weather report rather than a potential reactor meltdown. He glanced over at his team and said, "All right, folks, let's see what we're dealing with." To the horror of the alien crew, the humans bypassed the containment barriers without hesitation. They ignored the standard diagnostic procedures, reaching directly for the reactor controls with what could only be described as brazen confidence. One of them pulled out a silvery, adhesive material, duct tape, and examined it with a thoughtful expression. "What are you doing?" Lanok demanded, his voice rising slightly. "We have strict protocols in place. You must follow the procedures." The human looked at him with a casual smile. "Don't worry, Chief. We've got this. Reactor surges aren't too different from a bad circuit back on Earth." With that, the humans got to work, their movements quick but seemingly random, each action lacking the structured efficiency that defined the alien crew. But what shocked Lanok and his team most was that, despite the apparent chaos, the reactor's energy readings began to stabilize. One by one, the alien researchers watched in awe, their carefully maintained order unraveling before their eyes. Every fiber of their being wanted to intervene, to stop the humans and guide them back to protocol. But something held them back, a strange sense of respect perhaps, or a nagging suspicion that somehow the humans' unconventional methods might actually work. For the first time, Lanok felt the foundations of his understanding of order and safety begin to tremble. Watching the humans as they nonchalantly patched the reactor, he couldn't shake a growing sense of admiration mixed with a profound existential question. Were the humans reckless, or were they simply operating on a level of adaptability that the Galactic Alliance had never even imagined? The humans moved around the reactor with a nonchalance that left the alien crew frozen in place, torn between horror and fascination. Each member of the Galactic Alliance team had been meticulously trained to view reactors as fragile entities, prone to catastrophic failure if handled improperly. And yet, The humans treated it with the casual indifference one might reserve for a household appliance. Chief researcher Lennox struggled to process what he was seeing. Standing at a safe distance behind the containment barrier, his mandibles clicked nervously, a rare sign of distress among his species. His instincts screamed at him to intervene, to demand that the humans follow the intricate protocols his team had rehearsed so diligently. But the humans weren't listening, or perhaps they just didn't care. One of the humans, a tall, broad-shouldered figure with a shock of untamed hair, crouched beside the reactor, examining the surging energy outputs with a bemused expression. He pulled out a device, a seemingly primitive tool by galactic standards, that emitted a faint hum as he waved it over the reactor. "Looks like we've got a pressure buildup in the secondary coil," he muttered to himself, barely acknowledging the presence of the aliens, watching with wide eyes. A little release should do the trick. Before anyone could stop him, he took out what appeared to be a metal rod with a flattened end and wedged it between two critical components of the reactor, applying pressure with his weight. The reactor's output indicators flickered, momentarily spiking, before settling back to a stable level. Lennox's mind reeled. Release? A little release? This was a reactor, a device that, if mishandled, could result in catastrophic energy discharge. And yet the human had corrected the fluctuation with what could only be described as brute force. Another human, a female with a kind but determined expression, noticed the shock on the aliens' faces and chuckled. "You're all looking at us like we're about to explode or something. Don't worry, we've done this 100 times before." The aliens exchanged glances, struggling to find words. Finally, Gavath, his voice trembling, managed to speak. "But the protocols, the containment procedures, are you not concerned about the risks?" The woman shrugged, her expression casual, as though the entire situation were nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "Sure, there's always a risk, but we've learned to manage it. Sometimes all you need is a little ingenuity and a lot of duct tape." Duct tape. The aliens' eyes collectively drifted to the rolls of silvery adhesive that the humans had brought along, nestled in their toolkits like treasured artifacts. To the crew, the idea that a substance as rudimentary as duct tape could be useful in a high-stakes situation was almost laughable. Yet here it was, revered by the humans as an essential tool. "Duct tape?" Gavath asked, his curiosity overriding his apprehension. "What precisely is duct tape?" The female human grinned, pulling a roll from her kit and holding it up for the aliens to see. "This stuff, it's like a miracle in a roll. We use it to patch up everything from broken machinery to torn spacesuits. It's flexible, durable, and sticks to just about anything." The aliens stared at the roll in awe, as though it were some legendary artifact. Lennox felt a strange sense of conflict stirring within him. Could it be that humans possess knowledge and tools we've overlooked? Or are they just astonishingly reckless? "Where we come from," Lennox began carefully, trying to mask his bewilderment, "we have strict protocols. Every tool, every method is thoroughly tested to minimize risk, and yet you approach this reactor with nothing but duct tape and a prayer?" the tall human supplied with a grin. Lennox recoiled slightly. A prayer? Galactic Alliance members adhered to logic and reason, their decisions guided by calculations rather than whims. But here were humans, their attitude toward danger more relaxed than Lennox thought possible, almost as if they didn't fully understand the gravity of the situation. Or perhaps, as a growing part of him suspected, they understood it all too well, and simply didn't care. "What would happen if the containment failed?" another alien asked, his voice tinged with dread. The human with the untamed hair shrugged. "Probably wouldn't be pretty. But that's what we're here for. Humans don't exactly back down from a tough job, you know?" The woman nodded, adding, "We've seen a lot worse." "I mean, have you heard of volcanoes? Earth's got entire mountains that explode with lava and toxic gas. We've learned to handle dangerous stuff from day one. Kind of comes with the territory." The crew's collective shock deepened. Volcanoes? Mountains that exploded? The concept was unfathomable, yet the humans spoke of it as if it were an everyday occurrence. For the first time, Lennox felt a creeping realization settle over him, a profound understanding that the human experience was shaped by a level of danger the Galactic Alliance had long since sought to eradicate from their own worlds. Perhaps humans weren't reckless. Perhaps they were simply accustomed to surviving in ways the Alliance had never considered. One of the humans glanced up from his work and, seeing the aliens' expressions, chuckled softly. "I get it. You're all thinking we're nuts, right?" Lanok hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Your methods, they seem unconventional, dangerous even." "Oh, they're dangerous, all right," the human replied, his grin widening. "But that's half the fun, isn't it? Pushing the limits, finding out what we're really made of. If we stuck to strict protocols all the time, we'd never get anywhere. Sometimes you've got to improvise a little." The notion was foreign to Lanok and his team. Improvisation was the antithesis of their training, a practice viewed as reckless and unpredictable. And yet, watching the humans work, they could not deny the results. The reactor was stabilizing, its energy levels returning to a safe range with each of the humans' improvised adjustments. The methods made no logical sense, but the outcome was undeniable. Gavath leaned closer to Lanok, his voice a whisper. Could it be that they're not afraid? That they're so accustomed to danger that they see this as trivial? Lanok mulled over the question, his eyes fixed on the humans, who were now casually chatting among themselves as they worked, sharing jokes and laughter, even as they made adjustments to the reactor's volatile systems. The scene was surreal, almost absurd. To the Galactic Alliance, danger was something to be respected, carefully analyzed, and avoided whenever possible. But to humans, it seemed that danger was an everyday companion, something they had learned not only to tolerate, but to thrive alongside. Finally, the woman straightened, wiping a bit of dust from her uniform. "There, that should hold. Reactor stabilizing, and you're good to go." The alien stared, almost in disbelief, as the reactor's energy readings normalized on the display. Just like that, the crisis was averted, not through any standard protocol or carefully laid plan, but through human ingenuity, improvisation, and a healthy dose of duct tape. "Remarkable," Lanok whispered, struggling to reconcile what he had just witnessed with everything he thought he knew. "You solved it, without protocol, without proper containment." The tall human clapped Lanok on the shoulder, causing him to flinch. "Protocol's great and all, but sometimes you've got to trust your gut. That's one of the perks of being human. We're adaptable. Throw us into a crisis and we'll find a way out. Might not be pretty, but it works." As the humans packed up their tools, the aliens exchanged glances, a mixture of awe and bewilderment evident on every face. They had spent their lives under the strict guidance of protocol, believing it was the only way to ensure survival in the harshness of space. But here were these humans, defying every convention, treating a crisis like a casual inconvenience, and succeeding. A silence settled over the group as the humans prepared to leave. Lanok felt an uncharacteristic urge to speak, to voice the questions gnawing at the back of his mind. "Humans," he began hesitantly, "what drives you to take such risks? To disregard safety? To treat danger as if it were nothing?" The woman turned back, her expression softening. "You know, Chief, I don't think we ever really see it as disregarding safety. We just approach it differently. We come from a world that's full of things trying to kill us every day. We had to adapt, had to learn to face it head on. It's not that we don't care about survival, it's that we've learned to survive in ways that might seem a little, well, unconventional." Her words hung in the air, resonating with a truth that Lanok and his team were only beginning to understand. Humans were not like other species. They were driven by something deeper, something that defied logic and calculation, a resilience born of a lifetime on a death world, perhaps, or a need to prove their strength in the face of adversity. As the humans turned to leave, the female glanced over her shoulder, a hint of a smile on her lips. "Next time you've got a crisis, call us. We're always up for a good challenge." The doors slid shut behind them, leaving the alien crew in stunned silence. For several long moments, no one spoke, each member of the crew lost in their own thoughts, trying to process what they had witnessed. Finally, Gavath broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "They fixed it. without protocols, using tape and intuition. Lanok nodded slowly, his many eyes reflecting a newfound respect. Perhaps the humans were reckless, perhaps even a little mad, but they were survivors in a way that the Galactic Alliance had never seen. And for the first time, Lanok wondered if maybe, just maybe, there was something to be learned from humanity's unorthodox ways. As the humans packed up their gear, the atmosphere in the containment chamber was anything but relaxed. The alien crew stood silent, their minds racing as they replayed the chaotic series of events they had just witnessed. The humans had managed to stabilize the reactor, but at the cost of every protocol the Galactic Alliance held dear. It was an impressive feat, yet deeply unsettling. Just as Lanok was beginning to process this strange new reality, a warning chime echoed through the chamber. The status displays around the room flashed an alarming shade of red. Warning: pressure surge detected in primary cooling conduit, the automated system droned, each word amplifying the crew's sense of dread. Lanok's mandibles twitched in a rare display of frustration. Another malfunction? He quickly accessed the system diagnostics, his eyes scanning the data. It didn't make sense. The reactor's energy levels were stable. There was no reason for the cooling system to react this way, unless something else had gone wrong. Gavath, hovering anxiously nearby, muttered, "Could it be a consequence of their methods?" Before Lanok could respond, one of the human engineers, the tall man with the wild hair, sauntered back over, apparently unfazed by the sudden alarm. He leaned over Lanok's shoulder, glancing at the diagnostic screen with casual interest. Looks like we've got a secondary issue here," he said, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "No big deal, just some pressure buildup in the cooling conduit. Happens all the time on Earth. We'll patch it up in no time." Lanok's head snapped up, his eyes narrowing. "You'll patch it?" The human nodded, reaching into his toolkit and producing what appeared to be a strange metal clamp and, of course, another roll of duct tape. He held them up with a grin. "Trust me, this'll do the trick." Lanok opened his mouth to protest, but the words caught in his throat. The memory of the reactor stabilizing under the human's chaotic methods lingered in his mind. Could it work again? Or was this reckless intervention only going to make things worse? As if sensing his hesitation, the woman from the human team chimed in. "Chief, we've handled stuff like this before. Back home, sometimes we don't have the luxury of protocols and fancy gadgets. Improvising gets the job done. Besides, your systems are more durable than you think." She flashed a confident smile, and Lanok found himself strangely drawn to her conviction, even as his instincts screamed against it. The Galactic Alliance had long regarded improvisation as synonymous with failure, a chaotic approach born from desperation rather than wisdom. And yet here were these humans, thriving in the very chaos he had been trained to avoid. Before he could argue, the humans had already moved into action, each one taking a position around the cooling conduit with practiced ease. The tall man placed the clamp around a pressurized joint, while his teammate layered duct tape over a leaking section of tubing. They worked swiftly, with an efficiency that defied logic yet seemed remarkably effective. Gavath, his voice a mix of frustration and disbelief, whispered to Lanok, "We should stop them. This is madness." Lanok hesitated, watching the humans closely. His logical mind agreed with Gavath. This was madness, an affront to every principle of safety and order he held dear. And yet, there was a part of him, a small but growing part, that couldn't deny the results. The humans weren't following any recognizable procedure, yet somehow their methods worked. With a final twist of the clamp and a few layers of duct tape, the pressure gauge on the cooling conduit dropped back into the safe zone. The alarm faded, and the status lights returned to their usual calming green. The humans stepped back, admiring their handiwork with self-satisfied grins. "There we go," the tall man said, dusting off his hands. "Nothing a little elbow grease and creativity can't fix." The alien crew stared, a mixture of awe and horror reflected in their faces. They had spent years training to maintain order in the face of crisis, to execute their duties with precision and care. And here were these humans, undoing their carefully structured world with duct tape and confidence. Just as Lanok was beginning to wrap his mind around this unorthodox approach, A third alarm blared, this one louder and more urgent. Warning, reactor cooling levels critical. Immediate action required to prevent system overload. The words hung heavy in the air, and this time, even the humans looked slightly concerned. Lanok's heart raced as he realized the gravity of the situation. If the cooling system failed, the reactor would overheat, causing a chain reaction that could jeopardize the entire ship. His instincts screamed for him to intervene, to take control and restore order. But before he could act, the woman stepped forward, determination etched on her face. "All right, this is serious. We need to divert power to the auxiliary cooling tanks." Gavath, incredulous, sputtered, "You can't just divert power. There are protocols, systems." She cut him off with a wave. "Look, there's no time for a step-by-step guide here. We're working with a ticking clock. If we don't get that reactor cooled down, it's game over. Trust me, we know what we're doing." Lanok's mind raced. Every instinct told him to assert control, to wrest back authority from these reckless intruders. And yet, faced with the looming catastrophe, he felt the words slip from his mouth before he could stop them. "Do it," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The weight of his decision settled heavily on him, but there was no turning back. The humans sprang into action, commandeering consoles and tapping into the ship's power grid with a dexterity that left the alien crew scrambling to keep up. They rerouted energy from non-essential systems, diverting it toward the cooling tanks with a speed and confidence that defied protocol. The aliens watched in stunned silence, their years of training rendered irrelevant in the face of the humans' audacious methods. One by one, systems across the ship flickered, lights dimming as power was redirected. The alien crew exchanged nervous glances, their minds struggling to comprehend the controlled chaos unfolding before them. This was not how they had been trained. This was something else entirely. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the reactor's cooling levels began to stabilize. The warning lights dimmed, and the loud hum of the ship's emergency systems faded into a quiet hum. The humans leaned back, their expressions a mixture of relief and satisfaction. "See," the woman said, flashing a triumphant smile at Lanok. "Nothing we can't handle with a bit of creative problem-solving." Lanok stared at her, his mind reeling. He had just witnessed a violation of every protocol he held sacred, a chaotic improvisation that flew in the face of everything the Galactic Alliance stood for. And yet, it had worked. The humans had saved the ship, not through adherence to order, but through a boldness and adaptability he had never thought possible. But as the humans exchanged high fives and congratulatory nods, a final alarm pierced the air, this one deeper, more ominous than any before. The room fell silent as a new message appeared on the display screens, sending a chill through every member of the crew. "Warning, reactor destabilization detected. Emergency containment breach imminent." The humans exchanged a look of genuine concern, and for the first time, Lanok saw a flicker of doubt cross their faces. The stakes had reached a critical level. This was no longer a simple cooling issue or a pressure surge. The reactor itself was destabilizing, and the consequences could be catastrophic. Lanok turned to the humans, his voice tight with urgency. What do we do now?" The tall man glanced at the reactor, his expression grim. "We're going to need to vent some of the energy. It's risky, but it's the only way to prevent a full meltdown." The woman nodded, adding, "We'll need your help, Chief. This isn't something we can fix alone. We're going to have to work together." Lanok felt a strange sense of resolve settle over him. These humans, reckless as they were, had shown him a new way of facing danger, a way that defied convention but embraced the raw, unpredictable nature of survival. Perhaps, he realized, there was more to survival than protocol. "Very well," he said, his voice steady. "Tell me what needs to be done." The humans moved quickly, assigning tasks with an efficiency that Lanok found both impressive and unnerving. They explained the plan: a controlled energy venting, channeled through the ship's external conduits to safely release the excess buildup. It was a bold maneuver, one that required careful coordination and, most importantly, trust. As Lanok relayed orders to his team, he felt a strange sense of unity settling over the room. Aliens and humans, working side by side, each bringing their own strengths to the table. For the first time, Lanok understood what the humans had been trying to show him: the value of adaptability, the willingness to embrace uncertainty. With the final adjustments in place, the team initiated the energy venting sequence. The reactor rumbled, its power surging through the conduits in a controlled release that sent tremors through the ship. Every member of the crew held their breath, their eyes fixed on the display as the reactor's readings slowly returned to normal. When the last of the excess energy had been vented, a hush fell over the room. The reactor was stable, the threat of meltdown averted. The crew exchanged glances, a mixture of exhaustion and relief evident on every face. The tall human clapped Lanok on the back, his grin returning. "See, that wasn't so bad, was it?" Lanok managed a faint smile, his mind too overwhelmed to find words. He had just witnessed a revolution in his understanding of survival, a revelation born from chaos and audacity, yet undeniably effective. As the humans began to pack up their tools, Gavath approached Lanok, his expression one of awe. They did it, without protocols, without order. They embraced the chaos, and they saved us. Lanok nodded slowly, a newfound respect settling over him. "Yes," he murmured, "they did." For the first time, Lanok saw the humans not as reckless intruders, but as allies, beings whose strength lay not in rigid adherence to protocol, but in an adaptability that transcended convention. And as they prepared to part ways, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning of a new chapter in the Galactic Alliance's history, a chapter shaped by humanity's unique, indomitable spirit. As the dust settled and the final warnings faded from the control panels, the crew of the Infinity's Edge found themselves standing in stunned silence. The humans, having done what seemed impossible with minimal tools and boundless confidence, exchanged triumphant smiles, already slipping back into their casual demeanor as if the past hour had been just another day's work. They showed no signs of the lingering tension the alien crew felt, no rush to check protocols or confirm the stability of the systems. They were simply finished. Chief Researcher Lanok's mind spun with questions, each one more disconcerting than the last. This mission had started as just another standard patrol, another task that would be carried out with precision and calm. But today, he had witnessed a level of unpredictability that defied everything the Galactic Alliance valued. In the span of an hour, humans had thrown aside every protocol, bypassed every safeguard, and still managed to stabilize the ship through methods that seemed to border on sheer madness. Gavath was the first to break the silence. He glanced at Lanok, his eyes wide with disbelief, and murmured, "Chief, I do not understand. How can they operate in such chaos? We have studied them, analyzed their physiology, their culture, yet nothing prepared us for this." Lanok nodded slowly, struggling to find words that could encapsulate the conflict churning within him. "It is as though they live outside of our understanding of order, yet they survive. No, they thrive in ways we cannot comprehend. I find myself wondering if we have overlooked something essential in our quest for stability." Nearby, a group of researchers huddled together, their whispers barely audible. "Do you think they truly understand the danger they face?" one asked, his voice a mixture of awe and fear. Another researcher shook her head. "No species could knowingly face such risks without—" "Without what?" a voice interrupted. And the crew turned to see one of the humans, the woman with the confident smile, watching them with an amused expression. Without a sense of caution, without a healthy respect for danger. Her words hung in the air, challenging the very foundation of the Galactic Alliance's beliefs. For countless generations, caution had been woven into the fabric of their survival strategies. Every species in the Alliance prized safety above all, viewing adaptability as a dangerous gamble rather than a strength. Yet here was this human, smiling at them, as if the concept of risk was nothing more than a puzzle waiting to be solved. We value life," Lanok said, the words coming out more defensive than he intended. "We have structured our existence around the avoidance of harm, the preservation of order. It is how we survive." The woman chuckled, a sound that seemed both warm and enigmatic. "So do we, Chief. But where we come from, danger is everywhere. Earth isn't exactly a walk in the park. Our whole history is about adapting to unpredictable situations. It's not that we don't value life. It's that we know life can't always be protected by rules. Lanok felt his mind stretch in ways he had never anticipated. He had always viewed adaptability as a weakness, a trait born of desperation and lack of control. Yet here was a species that viewed adaptability as a strength, a tool even. The idea was both exhilarating and terrifying. Gavath looked from the woman to Lanok, his expression hesitant. Do you think perhaps that they are what we could become if we embraced uncertainty? The question lingered in the air, each alien crew member grappling with the implications. The Galactic Alliance had existed for millennia, its members united by shared principles of caution and structure. They had long believed that survival depended on order, that their lives were safeguarded by adhering to protocols. But the humans had shown them something different, a life defined by resilience rather than control, a survival rooted in adaptability rather than caution. One of the younger researchers, a timid alien who had rarely spoken up during crises, took a step forward, looking at the humans with wide, curious eyes. Humans, may I ask, how do you find courage to face such risks? Does it not terrify you to venture into the unknown? The human grinned, her gaze softening. Oh, it terrifies us plenty, but you learn to live with the fear. I think over time we've come to see danger as just another part of life. We're afraid, sure, but we do it anyway. Sometimes it's the only choice we have. The alien researcher tilted her head, the concept both foreign and strangely liberating. The human's words echoed in her mind, resonating with a truth she had never considered. Was fear itself a tool, something to be acknowledged and then overcome rather than avoided? Gavath's mandibles clicked thoughtfully, and he turned to Lanok with an almost conspiratorial look. Perhaps the Alliance has overestimated the importance of control. Perhaps in our quest to avoid all possible risks, we have overlooked the power of adaptation. Could it be that the human's chaos holds a kind of order we cannot see? Lanok felt his worldview shift beneath him, a slow, seismic transformation that left him both shaken and strangely exhilarated. He had spent his entire career dedicated to upholding the protocols of the Alliance, believing that order was the highest form of survival. Yet the humans had survived, thrived even, by embracing a kind of controlled chaos, a resilience that seemed to defy reason. The humans, sensing the weight of the aliens' introspection, shared a glance. The tall man spoke up, his tone almost philosophical. You know, survival's a funny thing. Sometimes it's about sticking to the rules, but sometimes it's about breaking them when you need to. Maybe that's what makes us who we are. We adapt, we change, we face the unknown and find ways to handle it. Lanok considered the words carefully. Had the Galactic Alliance been limiting itself all along? Perhaps they had focused so much on preserving stability that they had missed the possibility of growth through adaptation, a way to strengthen themselves by embracing rather than avoiding the unexpected. One of the alien engineers, a meticulous planner by nature, looked at the humans with a newfound respect. It seems you view survival as a kind of dance, a balance between caution and courage. The woman nodded. That's one way to look at it. We've learned that sometimes the best way to survive is to take a step into the unknown, to be brave enough to face risks and smart enough to adapt when things go sideways. Sure, it's scary, but it's also what makes us human. A ripple of awe passed through the alien crew. They had come to view humans as strange, even reckless beings, but now they saw them in a different light. There was a wisdom in their approach, a kind of knowledge that could only be born from a life lived on the edge of uncertainty. The human's adaptability was not a flaw. It was a gift, a powerful tool that allowed them to face challenges with courage and resilience. As the humans prepared to depart, packing up their tools and flashing easy smiles, Lanok felt a sudden urge to voice the thoughts that had been simmering within him. Humans, before you leave, may I ask one final question? The woman paused, nodding an invitation. What does it mean to be adaptable? To face the unknown as you do? She considered the question, a contemplative look crossing her face. It means knowing that things won't always go the way you planned. It means having the courage to step forward, even when the path is uncertain. It's not about being reckless. It's about having the confidence to trust yourself, to believe that you can handle whatever comes your way. Lennox nodded, the answer resonating deeply. For so long, he had equated survival with control, with a rigid adherence to protocol. But now, he wondered if true survival lay in embracing the unknown, in daring to face uncertainty with open eyes and a steady heart. The humans turned to leave, but Lennox found himself calling after them. "Thank you for showing us a new way of thinking." The woman smiled, her eyes gleaming with warmth. "Any time, Chief. Remember, if you ever need help handling the unexpected, just call on the humans. We're always up for a good challenge." As the doors slid shut behind them, the crew of the Infinity's Edge remained standing in silence, each member lost in thought. The humans' words and actions had stirred something within them, a new perspective that challenged the very foundation of the Galactic Alliance's philosophy. Gavath looked at Lennox, his expression a mix of awe and curiosity. "Do you think we too could learn to embrace uncertainty, to face challenges without clinging to protocol?" Lennox considered the question, his mind alive with possibilities. Perhaps the humans' resilience was not a result of recklessness, but of courage, a courage that the Alliance had forgotten in its pursuit of order. "Yes," he said, his voice steady. "I believe we could, and perhaps in doing so, we may discover strengths we never knew we possessed. And perhaps in doing so, we may discover strengths we never knew we possessed." In the days that followed, the crew of the Infinity's Edge found themselves viewing their world with new eyes. They questioned protocols that had once seemed inviolable, examined traditions that had gone unchallenged for centuries. And though they continued to respect the values of caution and structure, a new seed of adaptability had taken root within them, inspired by the humans' fearless approach to life. For Lennox and his team, this encounter had been more than just a lesson in survival. It had been a revelation, a reminder that true strength was not found in avoiding danger, but in facing it with courage and resilience. And as they continued their journey through the stars, they carried with them a newfound respect for the human spirit, a spirit that dared to embrace the unknown, that thrived in the face of chaos. In the silence of the ship, Lennox reflected on what lay ahead. Perhaps, he mused, the humans were not just allies, but teachers, guiding them toward a future where adaptability and courage would redefine what it meant to survive. The journey continued smoothly for a few days, with the humans and aliens occasionally crossing paths in the ship's halls, each group carrying newfound respect for the other. Yet an uneasy calm lingered in the air, a sense that something bigger was looming. Chief Researcher Lennox tried to shake off his worry, telling himself that his team was well prepared, that their training would see them through anything. But his instincts, sharpened over years of experience, told him otherwise. On the fourth day, a sudden tremor jolted the Infinity's Edge, sending a ripple of shock through the entire crew. Lennox's comm device crackled to life with panicked voices, each one reporting malfunctions and strange readings from various parts of the ship. He rushed to the command center, heart pounding as the diagnostic screens flickered erratically. "Warning, structural instability detected in the reactor core. Primary and secondary cooling systems compromised." The announcement sent a chill down Lennox's spine. He quickly scanned the readouts, his mind racing. The core was destabilizing rapidly, and without a functional cooling system, it was only a matter of time before the reactor reached a critical point. This wasn't just another malfunction, this was a full-scale emergency. In a moment of desperation, Lennox did something he never would have considered before meeting the humans. He reached out to them directly, his voice carrying a sense of urgency that was unmistakable. "Human engineers, report to the command center immediately. We have an emergency situation in the reactor core." It took only minutes for the human team to arrive, their expressions sharp and alert. The woman stepped forward, scanning the readouts with a practiced eye. "All right, Chief, lay it on us. What's the situation?" "The reactor core is destabilizing. Both cooling systems have failed, and we're losing containment in the reactor chamber. If we don't stabilize it soon, we're looking at a catastrophic failure." The tall human, the one with the untamed hair, whistled low under his breath. "That's not good. So what's the plan?" Lennox took a deep breath, his mind racing through every protocol he knew. But even as he reviewed them, he knew none of the standard procedures would be enough. This situation was spiraling out of control too quickly, and there was no room for the slow, methodical approach they had trained for. Protocols alone won't be enough, he admitted, the words feeling strange and unfamiliar. We need your improvisation, your ability to adapt on the fly. You understand chaos better than we do. The humans exchanged glances, a spark of determination lighting up their faces. The woman cracked her knuckles, her eyes gleaming with the kind of excitement that only came from facing the impossible. All right, Chief, let's see what we can do. First, we're going to need direct access to the reactor's primary controls, and we'll need a way to bleed off some of that energy. Otherwise, it's just going to keep building up until it hits a breaking point. Lanok nodded, quickly relaying instructions to his team. They cleared the command center, creating a makeshift control hub around the reactor's diagnostic panel. The humans moved swiftly, setting up their tools and reviewing the readouts with an intensity that left the alien crew in awe. As the humans worked, the tension in the room thickened. Every few moments, a new warning flashed on the screens, each one escalating the sense of urgency. One of the human engineers muttered to himself, jotting down notes on a tablet before relaying instructions to the others. All right, we're going to need to reroute power from non-essential systems and vent some of the reactor's energy into the auxiliary conduits, he explained, his tone calm but focused. It's risky, but it's the best shot we've got. Lanok's mind raced as he processed the plan. Venting reactor energy was a last resort measure, one that could create dangerous fluctuations in the ship's structural integrity. But the humans seemed undeterred, their faces set with determination. You're sure this will work? Lanok asked, his voice betraying a hint of doubt. The tall man shrugged, giving a wry smile. Sure? No. But sometimes, Chief, you've just got to jump and hope the parachute opens on the way down. Lanok wasn't sure what a parachute was, but he understood the sentiment. For the first time, he found himself letting go of his rigid adherence to protocol, trusting in something less tangible, the humans' sheer resilience. The team sprang into action, each person taking up a station as the humans relayed instructions. They moved with a fluidity that bordered on chaotic, but each action seemed to flow into the next, creating an unstructured yet effective response. Lanok's crew, still uncertain, hesitantly followed their lead, their every instinct screaming against the lack of order, yet unable to deny the humans' effectiveness. As they rerouted power, the ship shuddered, a deep rumbling echoing through its hull. Lanok felt his nerves fray with every tremor, but the humans pressed on, unperturbed. They vented energy through auxiliary conduits, the reactor's output stabilizing in small increments. But it was clear that time was running out. The core's instability was still rising, and the humans knew it. We're going to need another energy release, the woman called out, her voice cutting through the hum of the systems. There's too much pressure building up in the conduits, and if we don't relieve it, it's going to blow. Gavath, his face pale, shook his head. We don't have a protocol for this. There's no safe way to vent this much energy without risking. The woman cut him off with a fierce look. Gavath, right? Listen, protocols are great when you've got time, but we don't. Sometimes you've got to take a risk. Now, if you can vent the energy to the outer hull and direct it away from critical systems, we might just have a shot. Gavath hesitated, his eyes darting to Lanok for guidance. Lanok met his gaze, his voice steady but firm. Do as she says. Protocols won't save us now. With a reluctant nod, Gavath moved to the controls, inputting the necessary adjustments. The ship trembled, the lights flickering as energy coursed through the conduits, diverted to the outer hull in a controlled release. The crew held their breath, watching the screens as the reactor's output stabilized further. It was working, slowly, but it was working. Then, just as hope began to surface, a new alarm blared, louder and more urgent than any before. Warning, structural breach detected in secondary containment field. Reactor core integrity compromised. Lanok felt his heart drop. This was the final stage of failure, the point at which no amount of power redirection or venting would save them. He turned to the humans, desperation in his eyes. Is there anything else we can do? The tall man's face was grim, his gaze unwavering. We've got one last option. We're going to need to get inside the containment field itself and manually stabilize the core. It's dangerous. No, it's downright suicidal. But if we don't do it, the ship's a goner. Lanok's crew recoiled at the suggestion. The containment field was a lethal zone, flooded with radiation and unstable energy. To enter it was to embrace almost certain death. And yet, the humans looked ready to face it without hesitation. "We can't ask you to do this," Lanok said, his voice barely a whisper. "No one could survive inside that field." The woman gave him a steady look, a hint of a smile on her lips. "Chief, you didn't ask. We volunteered." With that, the humans suited up, donning reinforced radiation gear that was still woefully inadequate for the containment field's levels. But they didn't seem to care. They moved with purpose, their faces set with a fierce determination that sent a shiver down Lanok's spine. He had never seen such bravery, such willingness to face the impossible. "Are you ready?" the tall man asked, his voice muffled by his helmet. The woman nodded. "Let's do this." As the humans entered the containment chamber, the rest of the crew watched from the control room, their breaths held in collective suspense. On the screens, they saw the humans move toward the reactor core, their figures dwarfed by the massive machinery. The radiation levels spiked, the screen's readings flashing red, but the humans pressed on, working with swift precision. Lanok's heart hammered as he watched them navigate the containment field, each step a defiance of logic and survival. They reached the core, securing clamps and recalibrating systems in a coordinated effort that left the crew in awe. Every movement, every action was a testament to their resilience, their refusal to yield in the face of insurmountable odds. Then, with one final adjustment, the core's readings stabilized, the reactor's energy output returning to safe levels. The containment breach warning faded, replaced by a reassuring hum as the systems returned to normal. In the control room, the crew erupted in cheers, their relief mingling with awe and admiration. Lanok's eyes were fixed on the screens, his heart swelling with a mixture of gratitude and respect. He watched as the humans, weary but triumphant, made their way back to the exit, their figures haloed by the reactor's fading glow. When they finally emerged from the containment chamber, the alien crew surrounded them, their faces shining with gratitude and amazement. Lanok stepped forward, his voice choked with emotion. "You saved us," he said simply. "In ways we could never have imagined, you taught us that survival is more than just protocol. It is courage, adaptability, and above all, heart." The tall man grinned, his face still streaked with sweat. "Well, Chief, sometimes it takes a little madness to get through the worst of it." The woman nodded, a glint of pride in her eyes. "You all did great, too. Sometimes it's not about the rules you follow, but the risks you're willing to take, and I'd say you took a pretty big leap today." Lanok glanced around at his crew, each member transformed by the experience. They had faced chaos and uncertainty, but they had found strength in themselves and in their human allies. Today they had learned that survival was more than order and protocol. It was courage, resilience, and the willingness to adapt. As they parted ways, Lanok felt a deep sense of gratitude, a newfound understanding that he carried within him like a light. The humans had shown them a different path, a way forward that embraced both caution and courage, tradition and change. And as the Infinity's Edge resumed its journey through the stars, Lanok knew that the Galactic Alliance would never be the same. They had glimpsed a new way of thinking, a world where adaptability and resilience reigned, a world shaped by the indomitable spirit of humanity. As the Infinity's Edge continued its journey, a profound silence settled over the command center. The echoes of alarms and warnings had faded, leaving behind only the quiet hum of a ship that was, against all odds, still in one piece. The alien crew gathered in a loose circle, their eyes lingering on the humans with expressions that mixed awe, gratitude, and a deep, unspoken respect. Chief Researcher Lanok stood at the forefront, his usually composed demeanor softened by the weight of the day's events. He studied the human team, tired but triumphant, their faces marked by both exhaustion and pride. Lanok had spent his life adhering to the strict tenets of protocol and safety, but today he had witnessed something beyond the boundaries of his training. Today he had seen courage and adaptability in its purest form. "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet but resonant. "You have shown us a new way to survive, a new way to face the unknown. Without your intervention, we would not be here." The woman, her face flushed and still gleaming with the sweat of her efforts, smiled gently. "We're all in this together, Chief. We didn't save the ship alone. Your crew—" She glanced around at the faces of the alien crew members, each of whom was looking back at her with newfound admiration. "They stepped up, trusted us, and adapted to the situation just like we did. We couldn't have done it without them." A murmur of agreement rippled through the aliens, their eyes meeting in silent acknowledgement of their shared accomplishment. In that moment, the divide between human and alien seemed to dissolve, replaced by a unity forged in the fires of crisis. They were not just colleagues from different species, they were partners, allies who had faced the unimaginable together and emerged stronger for it. Gavath, who had always been cautious and somewhat wary of humans, stepped forward, his usually reserved features softened by an expression of gratitude. I have to admit, I never fully understood your ways. At times your methods seemed chaotic, even reckless. But today I saw a strength in you that I had not thought possible." The tall human, his face breaking into a broad grin, clapped Gavath on the back in a gesture of camaraderie that sent a ripple of surprise and amusement through the alien crew. "Gavath, buddy, I'll take that as a compliment. Besides, a little chaos never hurt anyone, right?" Gavath gave a hesitant nod, a smile creeping onto his usually stoic face. "Perhaps there is wisdom in your chaotic methods after all." Lanok felt his own resolve deepen as he looked at his crew, each of them visibly changed by the day's events. He realized that this encounter had done more than just save their lives. It had reshaped their understanding of survival, challenging the assumptions they had long held about order and predictability. Turning back to the humans, Lanok spoke with a sense of sincerity that surprised even himself. "You have reminded us that survival is not always about following the rules. Sometimes it is about finding the courage to break them, to adapt, and to face the unknown with open eyes. We owe you a debt of gratitude." The woman smiled, her eyes warm with appreciation. "And we owe you one too. It's not every day we find allies willing to adapt as quickly as you did. That takes a kind of courage too, you know. Courage to step out of the familiar and trust in something new." Lanok nodded, the weight of her words settling over him like a revelation. For the first time, he understood that courage wasn't a quality exclusive to humans. It was something that could be cultivated, nurtured, and embraced, even by those who had spent their lives avoiding risk. And in that moment, he felt a spark of hope, a sense that perhaps the Galactic Alliance could evolve, learning from humanity's resilience to become stronger, braver, and more adaptable. As the human team prepared to depart, Gavath stepped forward again, his voice hesitant but sincere. "Before you go, may I ask a question?" The tall man turned, his expression curious. "Sure thing, Gavath. What's on your mind?" Gavath hesitated, glancing at Lanok for reassurance before continuing. I find myself wondering, what drives you to face such danger with such confidence? Do you not fear the consequences?" The woman's smile softened, and she considered her answer carefully. "Oh, we fear it all right, but fear doesn't stop us. It's just part of the experience. I guess you could say that we face danger not because we don't fear it, but because we believe we can overcome it, and sometimes we just don't have another choice." The answer seemed to resonate deeply with the alien crew, a truth that bridged the gap between their worlds. They had always viewed fear as something to be managed, minimized, and avoided whenever possible. But the humans had shown them that fear could be harnessed, transformed into a driving force that propelled them forward rather than holding them back. As the humans finally made their way toward the exit, the aliens watched in silence, each of them reflecting on the lessons they had learned. Lanok felt a profound sense of change stirring within him, a shift in perspective that would echo throughout his life, and perhaps throughout the Alliance itself. Just as the humans were about to leave, the tall man turned back, his eyes twinkling with a mischievous glint. "Oh, and one last thing, Chief. Next time you've got a reactor on the verge of meltdown, don't hesitate to give us a call. We're always up for a little excitement." Lanok allowed himself a rare smile. "I will keep that in mind, and should you find yourselves in need of a protocol or two, Feel free to reach out." The humans chuckled, exchanging a final wave before the doors closed behind them, leaving the alien crew in a contemplative silence. For a long moment no one spoke, each person lost in their own thoughts, processing the profound changes they had just experienced. Finally, Gavath turned to Lanok, his expression a mixture of awe and curiosity. "Chief, do you believe we too could learn to embrace the unknown? To face challenges without relying solely on protocol?" Lanok considered the question carefully, a new sense of resolve settling over him. "Yes," he said, his voice steady and confident. "I believe we can. And perhaps in doing so, we may discover strengths we never knew we possessed." The crew nodded in silent agreement, their expressions filled with a mixture of anticipation and pride. They had seen a new path, a way forward that was both daunting and exhilarating. And as they resumed their duties, they carried with them the lessons of courage, adaptability, and resilience that the humans had shown them. In the days that followed, Lanok observed subtle changes in his crew. They moved with a renewed sense of purpose, their interactions marked by a quiet confidence that had not been there before. They spoke openly of new ideas, exploring possibilities that lay beyond the constraints of protocol. And though they continued to value caution, they began to see it not as an absolute, but as one tool among many, a guide rather than a limit. For Lanok, this experience had been more than just a lesson in survival. It had been a revelation, a reminder that true strength was found not in avoiding danger, but in embracing it with courage and resilience. And as the Infinity's Edge sailed through the stars, he felt a profound sense of hope, a belief that the Galactic Alliance could evolve, that they could learn to face the unknown with the same bold spirit that humanity had shown. In the quiet solitude of his quarters, Lanok reflected on what lay ahead. The humans had left an indelible mark on the Alliance, a legacy of courage and adaptability that would ripple through generations to come. And though he did not know where this new path would lead, he felt a sense of peace, knowing that they were no longer bound by fear and protocol alone. Instead, they had discovered a strength that transcended boundaries, a resilience that came not from rules, but from the courage to face the unknown. And as Lanok gazed out at the endless expanse of stars, he felt a quiet certainty that, whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, human and alien alike, united by a bond forged in the fires of crisis and tempered by the unbreakable spirit of survival. Several months had passed since the humans had left the Infinity's Edge, but the memory of their visit remained vivid, woven into the daily lives of the crew. Chief Researcher Lanok found himself reflecting on the events almost daily, his mind tracing over each moment, each lesson learned, as if examining a rare artifact of immense value. The humans had changed them, not just in how they responded to crises, but in how they understood the very nature of survival. The crew had returned to their usual routines, but something fundamental had shifted. Conversations about adaptability and courage had become common, and the previously rigid adherence to protocol had softened, replaced by a willingness to explore new approaches, new ways of thinking. The shift was subtle but undeniable, a ripple of change that spread through the ship like a quiet revolution. In the Galactic Alliance Council chambers, the influence of humanity's example had reached even the highest levels. Reports of the humans' adaptability, their unorthodox methods, and their unbreakable resilience circulated among council members, sparking debates that had once been unimaginable. Counselors, who had long advocated for strict protocol, now found themselves considering the value of flexibility, the potential benefits of embracing uncertainty. Lanok himself had been summoned to present his findings, his observations of human ingenuity and courage. Standing before the council, he had spoken of the experience not as a scientific report, but as a profound revelation, a glimpse into a world where survival was not dictated solely by caution, but by a balance of bravery and adaptability. The council members had listened intently, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and introspection, as Lanok shared his belief that the Galactic Alliance could grow stronger by learning from humanity's resilience. After the presentation, Counselor Urthal, a venerable member known for his adherence to tradition, approached Lanok, his many eyes reflecting a contemplative light. Chief Researcher, he said, his voice thoughtful, you have given us much to consider. Perhaps it is time we reevaluate our understanding of survival. Perhaps there is strength in adaptability that we have overlooked. Lanok inclined his head, feeling a sense of pride and hope well within him. Thank you, Counselor. I believe that if we are to face the unknown, we must be willing to adapt, to find strength in ways we have not yet considered. Earthal nodded, a subtle smile gracing his features. Yes, and who better to guide us in this than our human allies? The council chambers had buzzed with discussion, the seeds of change taking root within the very heart of the Alliance. And though Lanok knew that change would come slowly, he felt a renewed sense of purpose, a belief that the Alliance was on the path toward a future shaped not by fear, but by resilience. Back aboard the Infinity's Edge, the crew continued their journey, each member carrying within them the lessons they had learned. The memory of the humans' visit had become a part of their shared experience, a story they would tell and retell, passing down to future generations like a treasured legacy. Gavath, once wary and skeptical, had become a staunch advocate for adaptability, often encouraging his fellow crew members to think beyond the confines of protocol. He'd even taken to carrying a small roll of duct tape in his toolkit, a humorous tribute to the humans who had taught him that sometimes the simplest tools could be the most powerful. In quiet moments, Lanok would glance at the stars, his mind drifting to the humans who had changed his life and the lives of his crew. He knew that the bond forged between their species was more than a fleeting alliance. It was a bridge, a connection that would endure, built on a foundation of respect and shared survival. And as the Infinity's Edge sailed through the endless expanse of space, Lanok felt a sense of peace, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them not with fear, but with courage and resilience. They were no longer bound solely by protocol. They had discovered a strength that transcended their differences, a strength born of unity, adaptability, and the indomitable spirit of survival. As the ship passed a distant star, Lanok found himself smiling, a quiet but profound smile that spoke of hope and possibility. For the first time, he felt not only prepared, but eager to face the unknown, knowing that humanity had shown them a new way forward. And somewhere, across the galaxy, he imagined the humans, facing their own challenges with the same courage, the same audacity that had inspired them all. They were allies, partners, and perhaps friends, united by a shared journey through the cosmos and a shared belief that together they could face whatever the universe had to offer.